All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into how the UK government is trying to kind of like inject some startup energy into the public sector.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it really is. So we're talking about like a potential big overhaul of everything from like how policies are developed to how you, the listener, interact with government services.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical shift. I mean, we're all used to thinking of government as this like massive, slow-moving machine.
Yeah.
But what if it could be like nimble and adaptable and responsive to your needs in like real time?
Right.
That's the vision they lay out in this gov.uk press release.
Exactly.
And it's some pretty interesting implications.
Yeah, this isn't just like some PR fluff. They're putting like real weight behind it.
Absolutely.
And starting with Pat McFadden, who's essentially tasked with making the entire government work better.
Yeah.
And he's not pulling any punches.
No,
He's saying he wants to make the state more like a startup.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement, and it gets to the heart of this whole initiative.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from the traditional top-down risk-averse approach and embracing a culture of experimentation and continuous improvement.
So what does that actually look like in practice?
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about beanbag chairs and ping pong tables in Parliament, are we?
Maybe not, but think about it this way.
Okay.
Imagine applying that move fast and break things ethos
Okay.
to, say, getting a business permit
Right.
instead of months of waiting and red tape. You could potentially launch your idea next week. The same principle could apply across a whole range of government services.
Okay, that's starting to like paint a picture.
Yeah,
But how do they plan to actually make this happen?
right.
You can't just snap your fingers and transform like a centuries-old institution overnight.
You're absolutely right. That's why they're starting with a £100 million innovation fund.
Oh, wow.
And this isn't just about throwing money at the problem.
Right.
They're creating these specialized crack teams
Okay.
to tackle specific challenges head on.
Yeah, these teams sound fascinating. They're pulling together data experts, policy wonks,
Yeah.
and importantly, people who are actually on the front lines dealing with these issues day in and day out.
It's about combining different perspectives and giving those closest to the problems a real voice in shaping selections.
Okay.
And here's the key.
Yeah.
These teams will have the freedom to experiment,
Right.
to try new things,
Right.
and yes, even to fail fast without fear of reprisal.
That's a pretty radical departure from the traditional, like, play it safe government mindset.
Absolutely.
So where are they focusing their efforts first?
They're starting with two key areas:
Okay.
improving family support and reducing reliance on temporary accommodation.
Okay.
And they've chosen 4 cities as their initial testing grounds:
Okay.
Manchester, Sheffield, Essex, and Liverpool.
It's interesting that they're starting with these specific issues.
Yeah.
What's the thinking there?
It seems they've deliberately chosen complex, multifaceted problems that have proven resistant to traditional policy solutions. They're essentially saying, we need fresh thinking and innovative approaches to make a real difference in these areas.
And it sounds like they're really empowering these teams to come up with their own solutions.
Yeah.
I mean, they're giving them the problem and saying, go figure it out, right?
Exactly. It's a bottom-up approach that encourages ownership and creative problem solving.
Right.
And the plan is to scale this up significantly once they've learned from these initial projects.
Okay.
They'll expand to new regions and tackle even bigger challenges like unemployment and skills gaps.
So it's like a pilot program for a whole new way of doing government.
That's a great way to put it. They're essentially testing a new operating system for the public sector. And to make this new system work, they need the right people.
Right, and that's where this whole tours of duty thing comes in.
Exactly.
They're basically saying, hey, tech geniuses, come lend us your brains for a year or so.
It's a pretty intriguing idea. Imagine bringing in people with experience at companies like Google, Amazon, or Tesla to work on projects in areas like criminal justice or healthcare reform.
Talk about injecting some fresh perspective and expertise. I can already see the potential for some seriously disruptive innovation.
The potential is definitely there, but it also raises some interesting questions.
Like what?
How will these individuals integrate into existing government structures?
Right.
Will their approaches be truly embraced, or will they get bogged down in the same old bureaucracy?
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about bringing in Silicon Valley hotshots, right?
Right.
They're also looking to tap into the expertise of existing civil servants.
Yes.
But in a different way.
Absolutely. McFadden is a big advocate for bringing more frontline workers into central government for secondments. He believes their practical experience is invaluable when it comes to shaping policy and designing effective solutions.
So getting people out of their departmental silos and into a more collaborative problem-solving environment.
Precisely. It's about breaking down barriers and fostering cross-pollination of ideas between different levels of government.
Okay.
And speaking of breaking down barriers, McFadden has been pretty vocal about his frustration with the current civil service recruitment process.
Yeah.
He called it, and I quote, mind-bogglingly bureaucratic.
Ouch, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement, so what's the plan there?
He wants to simplify the application process
Yeah.
and attract top talent from outside the traditional government sphere.
Okay.
It's about making the civil service more accessible and appealing to individuals with diverse backgrounds and skill sets.
It sounds like they're really trying to shake up the status quo and build a more dynamic and responsive public sector.
It's a bold vision, no doubt.
Mhm.
And while there are bound to be challenges along the way, the potential for positive change is undeniable.
It's definitely an ambitious undertaking, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out. But let's shift gears for a moment and consider what this all means for you, the listener.
Because at the end of the day, these reforms aren't just about abstract ideas or political maneuvering.
Right.
They have the potential to directly impact your life,
Yeah.
your community, and your interactions with the government.
Exactly. So stay tuned because in the next part, we'll be exploring the potential benefits and challenges of this bold reform agenda and what it could mean for you personally. We just left off talking about how the UK government is taking some pretty big swings to bring a startup mentality to the public sector, but let's get real. What could this actually mean for you, the listener?
Well, imagine a world where dealing with the government is actually, dare I say it, easy.
Okay.
Instead of navigating a bureaucratic maze,
Right.
you'd have streamlined processes, personalized services, and solutions that are actually tailored to your needs.
Okay, I'm listening. Paint me a picture.
Okay?
What would this look like in, say, the realm of family support?
Think about it. Instead of having to jump through hoops and deal with a dozen different agencies,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have a single point of contact.
Okay.
Maybe it's a user-friendly online platform.
Right.
Or perhaps it's a local family hub where you can get personalized support and connect with resources in your community.
So less time wasted on paperwork and more time spent getting actual support.
Exactly.
I can definitely see the appeal. But what about those facing bigger challenges like housing insecurity?
Right.
We know temporary accommodation is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Could this new approach make a real dent in that problem?
That's the hope.
Yeah.
Remember those crack teams we talked about?
Yeah.
They're specifically tasked with finding innovative ways to reduce reliance on temporary accommodation. Imagine if they could develop early intervention programs
Okay.
that identify families at risk and provide support before they end up in crisis.
So instead of just managing the symptoms, they're going upstream to address the root causes. That could be a game changer.
Exactly. And because they're empowered to experiment, they might come up with entirely new models of affordable housing
Right.
tailored to the specific needs of different communities.
Mm-hmm.
This could mean everything from co-housing projects to rent-to-own schemes that actually help people build equity and achieve long-term stability.
Now, all of this sounds incredibly promising,
Yeah.
but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Injecting a startup mentality into government is a bold move,
Right.
and it's bound to come with its own set of challenges. What are some of the potential downsides we should be thinking about?
One of the biggest concerns is balancing this new test-and-learn approach with the need for accountability and transparency. Government decisions impact millions of people.
Right,
So we can't just have folks running around experimenting without any oversight.
right. We need to make sure that public funds are being used responsibly and that these experiments are conducted ethically.
Absolutely, and that means developing clear guidelines and oversight mechanisms
Okay.
to ensure that there are safeguards in place. Another potential challenge is managing the risk of failure.
Right.
Startups are known for their fail fast, fail often mantra,
Yeah.
but that might be a harder sell in the public sector,
Yeah.
where mistakes can have real-world consequences.
Yeah. It's one thing for a tech company to roll back a buggy software update.
Right.
It's quite another if a government program goes off the rails and impacts people's lives in a negative way.
Exactly. So it's crucial to create a culture of psychological safety, where civil servants feel comfortable taking calculated risks and learning from their mistakes without fear of punishment. That being said, even with the best intentions and safeguards in place, there's always the possibility of pushback.
Sure.
The civil service is a massive organization with its own ways of doing things.
It's like trying to turn a giant ship around.
Yes.
You can't expect everyone to be on board with a radical new direction overnight.
Exactly. There will be those who are resistant to change,
Right.
who cling to the old ways of doing things. Overcoming that inertia will require strong leadership, clear communication, and a compelling vision for the future. It's not just about convincing the people within the system, though.
Right.
We also need to consider how the public will react to this whole government as a startup idea.
Because at the end of the day, it's the citizens who will ultimately judge whether this experiment is a success or failure.
Exactly. Some people will be excited about the potential for more efficient and responsive public services.
Yeah.
They'll welcome the idea of a government that's more agile and adaptable to their needs.
Right.
But others might be skeptical.
Sure.
They might see this as a move towards privatization
Okay.
or worry about the potential for unintended consequences.
It's like anything new, there will always be early adopters and those who are more cautious. So how do you think the government can bridge that gap and bring everyone along on this journey?
Transparency and communication are key.
Okay.
The government needs to be upfront about its goals, the potential benefits and the risks involved.
Right.
They need to demonstrate through concrete results that this new approach can actually deliver tangible improvements in people's lives.
It's about building trust.
Yeah.
Showing people that this isn't just some flashy rebranding exercise,
Right.
but a genuine attempt to make government work better for everyone.
Exactly. And that trust will be essential to the long-term success of these reforms. Because ultimately, we're talking about a fundamental shift in the relationship between the government and the people it serves.
It's a pretty radical idea when you think about it, but it's also incredibly exciting. We're talking about the potential to reshape the very fabric of government and create a system that's truly responsive to the needs of its citizens.
And who knows? Maybe this will be the spark that ignites a global movement towards public sector innovation.
Yeah.
Other countries might look to the UK as a model for how to create a more agile and effective government in the 21st century.
Now that's a thought-provoking idea, but let's bring it back down to earth for a moment and talk about what this all means for you, the individual listener.
Because while these large-scale changes are fascinating to consider, what really matters is how they translate into real-world improvements in your daily life.
Exactly. So stay tuned because in the next part, we'll be diving deeper into the potential impact of these reforms on your personal interactions with the government, from healthcare to housing to everything in between.
We've been unpacking this ambitious plan to make the UK government more like a startup, but let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
How could this actually impact your everyday life?
Well, imagine a world where instead of dreading the thought of dealing with government bureaucracy,
Right.
you actually feel a sense of relief, knowing that the system is designed to be user-friendly and efficient.
Okay, that sounds like a utopian dream, but let's get specific.
Right,
We talked about family support and housing.
right.
What other areas could see a real difference?
Take healthcare. Imagine a future where accessing mental health services
Yeah.
is as easy as booking a doctor's appointment online,
Mm-hmm.
or a system that proactively connects you with resources and support based on your individual needs instead of making you navigate a complex maze of options on your own. So it's not just about making things faster, it's about making them smarter and more personalized. That could be a game changer for so many people.
Absolutely. And this startup mentality could even revolutionize the way we approach things like unemployment and skills training.
Okay.
What if instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, job seekers had access to personalized training programs
Mm-hmm.
and job matching services that take into account their unique skills and aspirations?
It's like having a career coach built into the system. But
Yeah.
let's be realistic. Systemic change takes time.
Right.
We're not going to see these transformations overnight. How long do you think it will take for these reforms to really take root and start making a tangible difference?
It's hard to say for sure. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the way government operates,
Mhm.
and that's bound to be a gradual process. But the key is that they're laying the groundwork now.
Okay.
They're investing in innovation, empowering those on the front lines, and creating a culture that embraces experimentation and continuous improvement.
So it's not just a quick fix. It's a long-term investment in a better future. And even if it takes years to fully implement these reforms, we could start seeing some exciting early wins along the way.
Think about it. If even a few of these crack teams manage to crack the code on some of these long-standing challenges,
Right.
the impact could be enormous.
Yeah.
It could create a ripple effect, inspiring further innovation and change across the entire public sector.
It's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this is an opportunity for all of us to rethink our relationship with government.
Okay.
We become so accustomed to bureaucracy and inefficiency that we've almost come to accept it as an inevitability.
Right.
But what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if government could actually be a force for positive change in our lives?
It's a powerful idea, and it's up to all of us to hold our leaders accountable for making that vision a reality. Absolutely. We need to stay informed, engaged, and demand better from our public institutions.
Mm.
And we need to be open to new ideas and approaches, even if they challenge our traditional assumptions about how government should work.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about making government more efficient.
Right.
It's about creating a society that's fairer, more responsive, and ultimately more empowering for all of its citizens.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive, but the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring this topic, share your thoughts, and stay engaged in the process of shaping the future of government.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.